Namo Buddhaya, Namo Ratanataya. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, depending where you may be in the world. And welcome to our special online program today, leading up to the upcoming December 2025 Nepal-India Pilgrimage, walking in the footsteps of Mahapajapati Gotami. We're very happy today to be joined by a couple special guests who we'll be introducing in a moment. I am Bhikkhuni Kachayana. I'm a resident here with Dhammadharini, and my co-host here is Bhikkhuni Vandana from India, who has spent the Vasa with us this year and last year, so very good to have her with us. And she's also had her own pilgrimage experiences that she'll be able to maybe share a little bit about today. So that is the topic of our program today is pilgrimage. And this is leading up to especially the that 2025 December pilgrimage that we'll be hearing much more about. Let me see. Sorry, I didn't get my hand up here. Anyway, this event today is leading up to that pilgrimage. It's also leading up to a special event for tomorrow. Those of you who are in California are very welcome tomorrow to join us in Berkeley, downtown Berkeley at Dharma College. We're having a special event tomorrow afternoon that is a benefit in support of the pilgrimage. And it will involve a special film screening of a film about the life of Mahapajapati Gotami, the founding mother of the Bhikkhuni Sangha, and also known as the mother of the Buddha. So the film is called Gautama Buddha Mata. It's a recent Sri Lankan film that we'll be screening. And we will also have opportunity during that event to welcome the sacred relics of Arahant Mahapajapati Gotami that will be arriving and coming into the hall. So there will be opportunity to view and meditate together with those sacred relics as we reflect on her life and prepare for this pilgrimage route in India that will be following a route that she herself walked along with her 500 companions. And so to tell us more about that route, we have today with us special guests, author Wendy Garling and researcher Deepak Anand. And we're going to have some time. Each of them will share with us about their work and experiences related to this pilgrimage. And then we'll have some time for question and answer with each of them after they speak. And at the end, we'll be opening it up for group discussion with everybody. And so there'll be plenty of time for questions and answers. And hopefully we'll all learn a lot more about this pilgrimage and the plans and for our inspiration, and also for even just our practical ideas about some of us may be wishing to go on this pilgrimage. Some of our bhikkhunis here are hoping to go, and I think I see a few online here also who might be considering joining this pilgrimage. So this is a good informational opportunity for you also. So welcome all. I'm going to start by introducing Wendy. So Wendy Garling, we're very delighted to have her back with us. Wendy Garling is a writer, mother, gardener, independent scholar, and authorized Dharma teacher with a BA from Wellesley College and an MA specializing in Sanskrit language and literature from the University of California, Berkeley. She is the author of Stars at Dawn, Forgotten Stories of Women in the Buddha's Life, first book. In a minute, I'm going to put the links to these in the chat for anyone who would like to go check out these books online. This one is a groundbreaking biography of the Buddha that relates his journey to awakening through the stories of Buddhism's first women. And second book is the award-winning The Woman Who Raised the Buddha, The Extraordinary Life of Mahapajapati, which includes a foreword by His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. So a Tibetan Buddhist practitioner, Wendy has studied with teachers of different schools and lineages, foremost her refuge Lama, His Holiness the 16th Karmapa, who gave her the name Karma Dhonden Lamo, her kind root Lama, the late Sarah J. Geshe Acharya Tugten Loden, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, whom she first met in 1979. From 1991 to 1992, she coordinated the Georgia chapter of the International Year of Tibet, helping to bring many Tibetan cultural and religious events to Atlanta and Emory University. As a freelance writer and editor, she was on the editorial team at the Boston Women's Health Collective for the 2005 edition of Our Bodies, Ourselves, and several subsequent BWHC publications. She also wrote business articles for the Palladium Group, published through Harvard Business Publishing. Pilgrimage has played an important role in Wendy's life. In 2007, she journeyed with Lama Tsultrim Allione to the sites of women saints in Tibet, and in 2011 and 2018 to Buddhist sites in India. In 2023, she led her own pilgrimage, following in the footsteps of Gotami and the first Buddhist women, through sacred sites in Buddhism's motherland of Nepal to Vaishali, India, accompanied by special guests, the Venerable Jetsun Ma Tenzin Palmo. So that is the same route as we'll be talking about today, and very happy to have her with us to learn from her experiences. Her dream is to bring back the stories of Buddhism's first women, reawaken their voices, and ensure that they are not just remembered, but valorized as integral to the roots of Buddhism. Wendy lives in Concord, Massachusetts, and she shares her email online. So I'm going to link to her books. This second one, The Woman Who Raised the Buddha, was also our founding abbess at Dhammadharini, Ayatollah, was consulting on this book with Wendy in preparation for a couple years beforehand. So I know that she has a lot of love and appreciation for this book, and happy to be sharing it with more people. And we also want to express our gratitude for Wendy that this is not the first time that you've joined us for a program. There's been several interviews and things over time. There was a 2016 public radio interview about the first book. There was an interview for our Vesak on YouTube in 2021, both of those with Ayatollah. So, and both of those are available online. So I'm also going to put links to those if anyone is interested. I see. Okay, Venerable Oweda has been putting some links to the chat already. So she's ahead of me. Great. Those of you who are on the Zoom, please check out the links there. So gratitude to Wendy for being with us.
Thank you.
And yeah, we're also going to introduce Deepak, and then we'll go back to Wendy for her sharing. And yes, Venerable Vandana.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you, Deepak, for joining us. So Deepak Anand is a heritage volunteer dedicated to preserving Buddhist heritage with a particular focus on the sacred footstep of the Buddha, as chronicled by the 7th century Chinese monk Bodhisattva Xuanzang. In 2020, during the COVID pandemic, he undertook a footstep journey of approximately 3,000 kilometers to explore and document Xuanzang's trail. His enduring mission is to elevate the Bodhicharika, the locations associated with the Buddha's footstep, into a living heritage, and to enhance global awareness of the significant contributions of Bodhisattva Xuanzang. Remembering and appreciating Deepak for his work over these years. And he has been making presentations for Dhammadharini on the Bodhicharika and retracing Bodhisattva Xuanzang work for the past 5 years. And for the past 2 years, he has been presenting on Mahapajapati Parinibbana Stupa in Vaishali for Dhammadharini. For the past more than a year on the concept of the MPG Great Renunciation Trail Charika. And Deepak have joined us through the Vasa also. So much appreciation for that. And he also helped Ayatollah and Venerable China 7 years back when they were in India, and he showed them around. And I hear lots of story how you explain beautifully, and everyone is amazed like how much details you explain, and the way you explain, people really appreciate that and loves that. I hope I can also hear something from you one day when I'll be in India. So thank you so much for joining us.
No. So yes, thank you both. Glad to have both of you here. And let's start with Wendy, inviting you to share about your experiences and
All right.
about the pilgrimage here. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction, and I'm very honored to be invited to speak today. I'm delighted to hear there's an upcoming pilgrimage following in the footsteps of Mahapajapati Gotami and the 500 women. It is, I think, a pilgrimage that can happen over and over again, reawakening the memories and the voices and the stories of those women and what took place. I came to leading a pilgrimage myself 2 years ago, really as a result of the research I did for both of my books. And my first book was more about all of the women really involved with the Buddha's life. But after that, I realized how much was unspoken and unsaid and unknown about Mahaprajapati. So my second book really focused on her. And what I found, as I'm not a monastic, but what I found that was so powerful for me is how much she contributed and what a leader she was before she became a monastic, which we learn in the Pali Canon was when she was 80 years old. And prior to that, she'd been a queen and a mother and had been a leader of the Sakya women. And I was very interested in uncovering more about that. So that also led me to wanting to go back to those areas in Nepal. And I did a few exploratory trips where I was really delighted to find how much memory there is still locally about the presence of this family, the women's family, Mahaprajapati and Maya's family in Nepal. And also, of course, the Buddha living in Kapilavastu. So from those exploratory trips, I organized a pilgrimage in 2023 that is similarly named to the one in December where we followed in the footsteps of Mahapajapati and the 500 women. You can, let's see, what's the first slide? Okay.
Okay, let me put the slides up just a moment.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is start, if you'd show, Venerable is helping me here with the slides, with the first slide, which to me is kind of a blessing on pilgrimage. That would be.
Just let me get it here. There we go.
So this is a quote from a Pulitzer Prize winning Native American, and he says, "Sacred places are the truest definitions of the earth. They stand for the earth immediately and forever. They are its flags and shields. If you would know the earth for what it really is, learn through its sacred places. You become one with a spirit that pervades geologic time and space." So I found that really rang true for me because actually visiting these places where I had learned the stories and learned, so much about the women there, actually walking in those places, sitting, reflecting, meditating, really deepened my practice. And I think that's really the gift of pilgrimage. So if we could go on to the next slide, I'm going to just show you. That was the poster brochure for our pilgrimage in the footsteps of Gautami and the first Buddhist women from Lumbini, Nepal to Vaishali, India. And it was just about exactly 2 years ago. And what I conceptualized for this pilgrimage was more or less doing it chronologically, beginning in the birthplace and then ending in Vaishali, which was the place of the Nibbana of all the women. And that worked out pretty well. Our group was fairly small. It was, to me, kind of an experiment, a pilot. I was putting it together conceptually for the first time. So I set a limit of about 25 to 30 people because that's how many would fit on our bus. And I figured one bus. So we the Westerners who flew in, we met in Kathmandu. And then we had 11, or well, 10 plus Venerable Jetsun Tenzin Palmo nuns who met us in Lumbini because they traveled overland from their nunnery in Himachal Pradesh in northern India. So we all met up in Lumbini, which became kind of our headquarters for the week. We stayed in the same hotel because everything's fairly close, and did day trips from the hotel to these incredibly wonderful regions within, well, under 2 hours by bus. So we can go to the next slide. This is a mural that inspired me. It's on the wall of Jetsun Ma's Gompa, her temple in India, and it's huge. It's side by side with the altar, and surrounding this beautiful painting are paintings of her disciples, Mahapajapati's, and I think there are 15 or 20 nuns painted on the wall also. But I used this as kind of a logo or guide. It's such an exceptional image. And if you'll go to the next slide, I had a carving made based on that image by one of the fine crafts families in Kathmandu that do wood carving. And they made this for us for the pilgrimage. And we used it as sort of our central altarpiece, and we consecrated it and carried it with us everywhere we went. And when we practiced, when we circumambulated and so forth, one of us, usually Jetsun Ma, would carry it. And this became the kind of blessed piece that we kind of created de novo from this pilgrimage. And you'll see this again in the pictures that come up. So the next slide. I want to give you a little background on what this land is like. This is the old map. You could call this an old map of this region. And the heavy black line that cuts through it is the present day border. And I'll say this was customized. It's a, imperfect, but it's close. So this is the border with India that we have today. But I just want to point out that 2,500 years ago, that border obviously didn't exist. And this was one region, and it's kind of a flat land, and you see the Himalayas above. This is sort of I guess it's called the Gangetic Plain area. And this is the area that the Buddha himself walked and gave teachings and so forth. But it's on the Nepal side, above that heavy black line, where he was born and where he spent the first 29 years of his life as in the Sakya kingdom. And however, even though he was enlightened in Bodh Gaya and on the Indian side, he traveled this territory throughout his ministry and returned to what is now Nepal many, many times. And to teach, and his own people, the Sakyans, became his disciples also, and as we know. So this, I think, just kind of helps demonstrate what to me is really kind of a fictitious separation of Nepal and India. And because the Buddha spent his childhood and almost half his life, when you add up the time he was teaching in Nepal, I think of Nepal as the motherland. It's also where his mother's family, the Kolians, were based, which is sort of a subsect of the Sakyans. They were all cousins, but the women were mostly from the Kolian side. So I think of, and I use this languaging in my writing, that Nepal is really the motherland to me, and India is the fatherland. That's where the Buddha became enlightened. That's where he gave many, of course, many, many teachings, and we know most of those locations. So that's, oh, and then you see Vaishali down on the Indian side, and that was the final destination on this trip, and it will be the destination on the December pilgrimage, as I understand it. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to move quickly through these. Here is Lumbini, and many of you recognize this. This is not really a temple, it's just kind of a big shed, if you will, over the birthplace site. And if we go to the next slide. Okay, that's a little bit, is there any way to make that smaller? This is an old statue carving. Okay, all right, well, it got cut off
Okay.
right above the birth site. And it's
Sorry. Yeah.
fairly well known. It's kind of ignored because it's so damaged. But what I noticed when I saw it that I hadn't noticed the first time is that the figure, well, this is first of all Maya giving birth. So she's always shown holding a tree branch above her head. And this took place right here in Lumbini. And the gentleman to the left, the two heads to the left are Brahmin gods, probably Brahma and Indra usually. And they're catching the baby who is coming out of her right side. Now that's very typical, and you see that in all the nativity images. However, there's a figure behind the baby, right above the baby. And I realize that is a very unusual positioning and image of Mahaprajapati, because she attended the birth with Maya. I think of them as co-birthing, in a sense, this baby. But usually Mahaprajapati is shown as a figure off to the side, off to the opposite side, supporting Maya. But this is highly unusual and very special, I think, because this captures the presence of Mahapajapati at the birth, right at the birth site in Lumbini. Okay, next slide. There are many, many monasteries in the Lumbini area, and this particular one is the central temple of the Mahapajapati Vihara or monastery. And it was very special to us because it highlighted the two women. And again, you see Maya holding the tree branch and her sister Mahaprajapati to the side. And this is one of the nunneries built by Bhikkhuni Dhammadharini Guru Ma in Kathmandu, a wonderful, I think she's now 93-year-old nun, Vipassana nun, Theravada nun, who's built nunneries all over Nepal, also to uplift the education and literacy of women. But she always highlights Mahaprajapati and her leadership. We visited her in Kathmandu before the pilgrimage, and she gave us her blessings and also invited us to be her guests at the monastery, her overnight guests, but we already had plans. But I just want to highlight this particular Mahapajapati monastery, which is right in the Lumbini complex. Okay, next one. Okay, so here we are on our first outing from Lumbini to Devadaha. And Devadaha, no one's heard of unless you read the Pali Canon, but that is mentioned frequently as the birthplace of the women, and it's where the Buddha gave teachings, and it's, you know, it was very familiar. And I was so pleased to see that it's still remembered and it's still called Devadaha. So it's a very poor town. There's nothing for tourists, not even a cup of coffee, but they did build this archway, which shows their pride. And I'll also mention these areas are not Buddhist anymore. It's a Nawari kind of mixture of Buddhism and Hinduism, but there is tremendous amount of pride and continuity from the time of the Buddha. I learned while being there to these places. So there we are. You see our motley crew. We're about half bhikkhunis, and most of the lay women are in the back, so you don't see them as well, but there we are. Okay, next slide. And this is nearby. I had to get a lot of help finding it. It's in a rural area, but it's just another marker of how these women are revered and remembered. So on the left, we have Mahaprajapati pointing to her son, the Buddha, which is how she knew him, and she raised him, as we know, from birth until her own passing at the age of 120. And then we see Maya on the right, looking more, you know, she's dying literally when we meet her, and her baby, the infant Siddhartha. So this is kind of a powerful image of the co-mothers and their different roles in the Buddha's life. This, by the way, is now very, very damaged. This picture was online, and by the time we found this actual site, for some reason, these were almost ruined. I don't know what happened, but anyway, I hope they they repair them. These are very large. They're bigger than life size. Okay, go on. Now we're going to the homestead of the mothers, and this is being remembered by the Nepali government, and there's not much money, but they fence off areas and they mark areas, and there is some development going on. I don't know how much, maybe Deepak knows more, but this is one of many designations in this Devadaha region and nearby, showing their recognition of the Buddha's history, the legacy here, and the women's legacy. And the next slide will show what's inside this compound. Oh, good. Those are side by side. That helps. Okay. So on the left, we see this little tiny temple. It's so sweet, dedicated to Maya. This is about 1 acre fenced. There's an old ancient well. There's also the stub of what is probably an Ashokan pillar, but there's no epigraphy on it, so no one's really researched it further, but it's exactly the dimension that a Ashokan pillar would be, and it's sticking out of the ground about 3 or 4 feet. I think it's protected. Excuse me, it's protected. Here you see us kind of cycling into this little tiny temple that just a few of us could fit at a time. But it was very precious. And I just want to point out again, this is a living temple. This is a temple that is, next slide you can show, is actively used by the women, mostly in the community. You see the puja paste, you see the marigolds. It's not particularly Buddhist, it's a goddess temple. And I think the notion of the goddess just has endured for 2,500 years. And it was very, very sweet sitting and meditating in there. Okay, go ahead. Now we're in Ramagrama, which is about another half hour or hour to the east. This is so sacred. This knocked my socks off. It's the only remaining burial site of the Buddha himself. When he passed away, his relics were divided by 8. And 7, I think 7 of them were in India, and then this one was designated for what I would call the motherland here. And they were all plundered a few hundred years later. They were buried or they were taken to these 8 sites, and they were plundered later by King Ashoka, who felt in his wisdom that the relics should be further distributed. So he opened these 7 sites, and now the remnants of what was contained in those areas have been dispersed. However, this site was not disturbed, and it's said that Ashoka went here to plunder, and I use the word plunder because I don't think he should have been doing this. He thought he was doing something correct. And it's said that the Nagas, the Naga protectors of this site, depending upon the story, scared him away, they confronted him, or they really gave him teachings on why this was not the right thing to do. But it was the Nagas, who I think of as the protectors, really, the mothers, maybe, protecting this site. And Ashoka is said to have abandoned his plan and worshipped here instead. So here we have an actual burial site of the Buddha. And in the next slide, and the tree is very sacred in the middle. I won't go into the tree, but it's 4 different trees interwoven into one. It looks like one tree, but it's really 4, which is unexplained to me. And there's katas that many people, visitors have tied. If you go ahead to the next slide. I didn't take this picture, but a friend did. It's an aerial view of what we're looking at. That's the stupa, that shadow in the middle. And there's a walkway around it, an elevated platform, so you can walk, and it's very mushy. This is all rice paddy territory. So you see this sacred tree that is kind of in that corner. And this is an amazingly powerful and sacred site, and I really worry that it's going to get more disturbed than it already has. But it's a really, really important site that I think should be on any Buddhist pilgrimage, not just a pilgrimage to see the motherland specifically, but it should be on every Buddhist pilgrimage. Okay, go ahead. I'll be brief here. I have a big story to tell about the Rohini River. But again, I was so thrilled to see that the river is still called the Rohini River. And that's the way it's described in the Pali text and the canonical material and all the early material. If you go to the next slide, I couldn't believe when I did my exploration how many of these places retained their original names. Here's a river. It's just a river, but you'll perhaps recall the story of the battle between the Sakyans and the Koleans, and the Sakyans would have been on the left side of the river and the Koleans on the right side. And it was coming to blows, and the Buddha, through his intuition and his compassion, appeared before them and came and sat on a sandbar just like that one in the middle of the river and gave teachings. And the men were so ashamed, they dropped their weapons. And at that moment, many ordained and took allegiance with him. And this is a pivotal moment for the women, because this is when the women, or the beginning of the exodus of the Sakya men began. They had already become disciples of the Buddha from his previous visits, but this is when they left with him. So this is beginning the drain of the Sakya people, where the women lost their fathers and husbands and sons, and it also put them on the spot. The patriarchy was the sort of safety net for women, and this is what led to, or was one of the factors leading up to them going to Mahaprajapati Gotami, who had also just lost her husband, the king, and asking for her to help them get ordination. So this Rohini River story is really important. And we sat here, it was kind of sundown, but we sat here and told stories at the end of the day on our way back to Lumbini. Okay, go on. Okay, I believe now we're at Kundan, is that right? Yeah, okay. The Nepal government has put up these kind of funky old signs around these places. And here is one that marks, this is Ananda asking on behalf of the women who are standing in the gateway there, asking the Buddha's permission for them to ordain. You know, there's a lot of controversy around that story and the steps involved, but this is the way it's captured in many versions, and this is the way it's being portrayed here. This took place actually not in Kapilavastu, but in Kudan, which in the Pali text, many of you will recognize as the Nigroda Grove. And I have a few pictures of that. Let's go to the next picture. Let's see what that one is. Okay, so here we are at the Kudan, the Nigroda Grove. And what I'll say is Kapilavastu is fairly well recognized as there's some dispute, but in Nepal, the site is Talora, and there's diggings there. I'm sure that the next pilgrimage will be going there and so forth. There's no large stupas that I've seen within the confines of Talora. There is a beautiful tree shrine, where there's constant worship going on by local women, drumming and singing. Again, remembering probably continuously for 2,000 years the sacredness of the place. But Kudan was built, the Nigroda Grove, by the Buddha's father when he heard that the Buddha was coming home as the Buddha, and that he would be bringing hundreds of disciples with him, his entourage. And obviously he wanted to be hospitable and make things right. So he established the Nigroda Grove, which is about 6 or 8 kilometers outside the eastern gate of Talora. We originally, I thought we could walk it, but we just didn't have time, and I think it's not safe. It's busy traffic. So we did it by bus. But it's a really powerful site, and it's empty. There's no guardhouse. It's fenced and it's well taken care of. There's several massive stupas. You see one behind me there and behind Jetsun Ma. And there is a small temple that marks the ordination site of Rahula, the Buddha's son, and that's a whole nother story, where when the Buddha came back, he ordained his son. This site is where miracles took place. They're all in my books, but to find that it was remembered, and Zhuangzi remembered this place in his writings, or visited this place, to me was just really exciting. So we can go to the next slide. I have a few here. So quite a large site. Here's the old well, still relatively intact. And you can see how large, if you look to the left, how large the grounds are here. And again, there's a boardwalk that you can walk on that kind of preserves the land, and it circles it. But I want to go to the next slide, where there's a very, very important story. And I won't go into too much detail, but it's an entire chapter in my biography of Mahaprajapati, chapter 6. And when the Buddha left home, when he was 29, she grieved terribly. She was really, really sad. And there are various stories that deal with her sadness. And one is that she went blind from weeping. But another whole thread is that she dedicated herself with all her energies and her love in weaving him a very, very special cloth, a very, very special robe. And these stories are remembered by Zhuangzi, and he mentions them in his chronicles. And these stupas are so big that it's hard to get them all in the picture. But anyway, this is a plaque on the stupa dedicated specifically to Mahapajapati giving the robe to her son when he finally comes back, which I believe was his first trip back, which would have been probably 12 years after he left home. There's some dispute on the chronology, but I go with the 12-year, not 6-year chronology. What happens to the robe then becomes a very elaborate further story. And I think I'll just leave it to chapter 6 for you to find out what happens. But it expresses her deep, deep love for her son, and and as a queen, she planted the seeds and grew the crop. And this was cotton, which was considered the finest cloth, and spun it and wove it herself with her own hands, which is something queens don't do. But it was demonstrative of her love and her attention to taking care of her son and presenting him with something really special. And giving of a robe was considered one of the highest gifts you could give someone, especially one that was made in this context. So to see that remembered on this stupa was, again, such a delight for me. And I don't know how old this plaque is. It's pretty primitive looking. It could be new, it could be old. There's no information. Maybe Deepak knows more. There's no brochures or handouts. These places you just discover on your own, really, even though they are, noted by the Nepali government. Anyway, it's a big, big story for Buddhism. This robe, I'll just shortcut, is now enshrined in Rajgir and is intended to be the investiture robe of Maitreya when Maitreya finally comes. So that's the whole trajectory of this robe story. And it's a story that needs to be remembered and retold, especially because it's ongoing. Okay, next slide. Now, this is our goodbye candlelight vigil. This is the stupa that we just saw. And we all lit candles, we all participated. You can see us here. And then we spent some time, this was our goodbye in a way, because the next day we all boarded the bus and, crossed the border into India. So this was really the end of the motherland part of our pilgrimage. And the nuns, I can't say what a gift it was to have the nuns with us, because they were so impeccable with their chanting and their presence, and they did chud in a number of places. It was really fabulous. And here they led a Tara chant, and we circumambulated. I have a 10-minute audio of it, but I didn't feel I should play that now. But we circumambulated this stupa on the boardwalk with candles as our kind of goodbye. And also just to mark, this is the beginning of where the women began their walk. So we were beginning our bus ride, but they were beginning their walk from this site. This is where, besides everything else, Mahapajapati and the 500 women at the Negrota Grove asked him for ordination. And I know the story is told differently, but the Buddha sort of said, well, now, not now, maybe later, whatever. You know, I have an opinion about that, but they didn't get the green light there. But this is where it happened. It did not happen in Kapilavastu. It happened here. So again, for women, this is really sacred. This is really a very powerful site for honoring Mahaprajapati and the 500 women. One thing I want to say about the women is I realized through the stories I was researching is that I've always thought of it as sort of a hierarchy where Mahaprajapati was the leader and the 500 women kind of came along. But what you find in some of the stories is the real dedication and compassion of the and passion of the women. These would be the Sakya housewives. These would be women of the harem to learn the Dharma, to become the disciples of the Buddha themselves. So it wasn't just her, you know, taking an initiative. In fact, she only responded when they came to her and said, will you help us? Will you lead us? And that's because she was the queen. She had the ear of the king when he was living, and she was the mother of the Buddha. So it made sense. She had the ear of the Buddha. But I just want to emphasize that the agency was present in all of the women. And I think that's a kind of a powerful image to keep in thinking of the 500 women. And we don't know their names particularly, although we know kind of who they were. But they had been introduced to the Dharma on the Buddha's previous trips and had become practitioners. So it was not until a later trip that they asked for ordination. And that's also, as I said, partially because they had lost their families, their husbands, and so forth. So this all took place here in Kudan. Okay, I think we're almost done. Okay, so now we're in Vaishali. There's not much else to our pilgrimage. We were very specific about what we were doing. A number of pilgrims went on from Vaishali to do the more traditional Buddhist pilgrimage. They went to Kushinagar and Bodh Gaya and Sarnath and the other sites, Shravasti. But our goal was to get to Vaishali. So here we are, and Deepak might laugh at this, but I think he remembers it was flooded at the time. And this is the rice fields, the rice paddies, and we didn't make it. The actual site where we were headed, where it said that the vihara was, is where that tree is. And it's on a little rise of land, and that's where the 500 women set themselves up, and I believe it's close to where the Buddha was staying. And this is not in the town of Vaishali, but somewhat north of there. And we also, you know, saw the sites in town, but those weren't particularly related to the pilgrimage. But anyway, so we didn't make it, which was very sort of classic sort of pilgrimage obstacle. But there was right where I'm standing with the camera, there was some dry land and kind of a rise, and we set up our tarps and our seating, and all the villagers were welcoming us. They were so friendly. And so instead of telling stories, which is kind of the format of this pilgrimage, is telling stories at the site where the tree is, we sat on a nearby knoll and completed really the stories there. While in Vaishali, I'll mention too, we also went to a mango grove, which is reminiscent of Ambapali, a very famous Terry in the Terigata. And during her years in Vaishali, she was a courtesan who gave all of her wealth and riches to back into the community, creating lotus ponds and gardens and helping people. So we also did some reflection nearby in a mango grove. So this was the conclusion of our pilgrimage. And if we could go to the next slide. Here's after the katas and goodbyes. We're saying goodbye to our dear nuns. And there's Jetsun Ma holding the carving that we had just presented to her, consecrated by our pilgrimage. And then the next slide is our gang. This is our whole gang, and this is more central Vaishali with the Ashokan pillar and the stupa. I think it's honoring a Jataka story. But there we are, and it was the conclusion of I guess it was about 9 or 10 very wonderful days. So that's our pilgrimage. And I highly recommend any shape or form you can do any kind of pilgrimage, but that's how we did it. And I hope some of our joy and energy rubbed off on some of you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. Otherwise, we can go on to Deepak.
Well, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yeah, it's really beautiful to see all those sites and get the sense of it on the ground, not just the stories. And so, yeah, we have about 10 minutes for Q&A with Wendy before we go on to Deepak's presentation. If anyone has any questions or comments sharing at this time, welcome. You can put up your hand on the Zoom or on your screen. You have your camera on. Well, I also want to welcome some of our venerables with us today. Ananda Bodhi, happy to see you, Aye, and Venerable Tubten, Kunga, and who's here? Very welcome to both of you. And yes. Ananda Bodhi, yes, please.
I don't have a question, but I just want to thank you, Wendy, for this beautiful. I feel like it's like a transmission from the pilgrimage, like we're getting a little thread from that, and I think I haven't really taken in before seeing those images of Yashoda and Mahapajapati together. I hadn't really taken in that. Sorry, Mahamaya and
Maya.
Mahamaya and Mahapajapati together. Somehow seeing them together like that and realizing, yes, they would have both been there at the birth. And I hadn't really taken that in before. So I really thank you for highlighting that. It sort of brings a whole other dimension for me. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I see a hand from Janaki. Yes, please. Welcome to unmute yourself and go ahead.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. It's a very interesting presentation, and I have seen a lot of information which I have not heard before. There's a question actually when I saw the slide where which shows that Anand Thera was asking permission from the Buddha, or he was just carrying the message from Mahaprajapati Gotami to Buddha regarding the ordination of the women, which I find it so difficult to understand, because even any woman, any man or woman of any status could approach Buddha. But why, being the mother of the Buddha and being a queen and being a very responsible, important person in the society, did she have to go through, why did she have to go through Ananda Thero to talk to the Buddha regarding that, which I find it difficult to understand?
Well, I think that's a great question. And I think, first of all, we don't really know what happened. I think that's the way the story is told, but we don't really know. I've often thought about that, actually. I have two responses. One is, and I don't remember right offhand the sources, it's been a few years, but there is some literature that says that Mahaprajapati did, when she got to Vaishali, did address the Buddha directly. I don't know about in Kudan, but Ananda was not an intermediary. And I believe that would be in my book. So there, when you read the literature across the spectrum of the different traditions, you get different versions of the same story, which is what I find fascinating and what I was looking for. I think there's a lot of skillful means, if you will. I think I think you're right. Obviously, she could have gone directly to him, and maybe she did. Maybe
Yes,
we
of
don't have
course.
that. Excuse me?
Yes, of course. I believe that too. She would have gone straight. I mean, she may have done it by herself rather than going through an intermediary.
Well, I think that that's possible, but what I was going to say about skillful means is I think the Buddha was very careful about, I mean, he was surrounded by family. I mean, look at Ananda, who they say was his cousin. I frankly believe Ananda was his son from the harem. And I have some evidence in my books for that. So he needed to kind of keep some layers to not show what we would call nepotism or some kind of closeness that maybe would be deemed inappropriate. There's a story where, her ordination was different. Mahaprajapati's ordination was different, and that was just between, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe between the two of them. And later there were nuns who were disgruntled and said that didn't count. She wasn't really ordained. And I think those were probably not Sakya women. I think those were probably women from other regions who didn't have the same deep allegiance to her as the queen and maybe trust. I think he was dealing with a lot of politics. And I think you can read between the lines a lot, but I think it might have been just a matter of kind of propriety that she would not be treated differently. But we don't know what really happened. But I think that's a really good question. And I think it's one that would be fun to have, a larger discussion about. But we don't know, we weren't there.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Well, I wonder, Dhammadharini, I was just thinking when we saw that slide at the end of Wendy's talk of the tree off in the distance with the flooded rice paddy, we have one seminary here with us who I think has also been to that same spot, and they were able to find a boat and go across the flooded rice paddy, and they actually got there. There's a wonderful, yeah, she took the Cambodian bhikkhunis in a boat across that flooded rice paddy and made it to the tree. We have a wonderful live streamed video of that somewhere. Do you want to say anything briefly about that? Do you want to come and put you on the screen here? Okay.
That's all right.
No?
That's okay.
Okay.
So thank you, Wendy. The entire trip really amazing the way you took it, and I'm looking forward to the December pilgrimage as well. The one, you share all these story that I didn't really, some of these that I really didn't really kind of pin down. But the one that got me really happy was that you didn't make there was a boat there, So when we were there was no boat, and then we didn't give up. So we went to have lunch, and then we came back, there was a boat and took us to the tree. So it's just amazing. We thought it was a miracle. Somebody sent us the boat. So we got to the tree in that same year, 2023. That was December 13th. Thank you.
Oh, you were right after us. Hello. I'll tell you, to just add to my piece of it, when I was taking that picture, there was a boat underwater. Did you see? Was that in the picture? There was a boat submerged underwater. And one of the kids, like the 12-year-old, said, "Oh, we can pull it out for you." And it was completely submerged. And he said, "Do you want us to pull it out? We'll take you over in this boat." And first of all, we were 25 or so people. But I said, "No, I don't think so. Not if it's been underwater. There's a reason it's been underwater." But anyway, yeah, no, good for you for making it and for persevering. We were content. I think it was almost an irony at the end that we found fitting in a way. It's like, well, we have to come back, or, this is one of those pilgrimage events. But anyway, I'm glad you persevered and you made it to the tree. What kind of tree is it, by the way? Do you know?
What kind of tree? Is it a Bodhi tree?
No, it's
Not a Bodhi tree.
Not a
Do you know
fig?
what kind?
Okay.
don't know. Maybe Deepak would know. So I think it is actually about time for us to close our Q&A with Wendy and move on to Deepak's presentation. So maybe he can also let us know what he knows about that tree when it comes to the right time. Welcome, Deepak. All right.
Book, now the screen is yours. You can please start.
Yes. Yes. So welcome, Deepak, for your presentation, and we'll have a little time for Q&A with you also at the end. So we're seeing part of your screen.
It's not opening.
Are you able to play the slideshow?
Can you see the presentation?
We don't see it full screen. We see just the small slides and the thumbnails.
But why it's not happening when I'm trying? It's coming. Can you see the presentation?
No, no, it just disappeared. Ah, there we go. Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so this is a picture. It's a painting done by one of my friends. So this shows the very difficult journey which this 500 Shakin women they did. So actually, I walked this trail. This trail is from like Tilarkot, and this ends somewhere here in Vaishali. So this is an ancient trail which Buddha also took in his renunciation, and this was a trail for anybody who was commuting between Tilarakota, I mean Kapilavastu, and going to Vaishali or to Rajgir or anywhere further south. So we know this trail because of Xuanzang, because Xuanzang also followed the same trail of Buddha and Mahapajapati Gotami. He doesn't mention Mahapajapati Gotami, but he says that he followed this trail of renunciation trail of Buddha, Bodhisattva Siddhartha. So, and this is like 300-kilometer trail. So we find mention about this story in Pali sources. And when I read this, so I was very excited. And at that time, I was doing this Xuanzang Trail. I was walking Xuanzang Trail in 2020 COVID time. So I had this opportunity to walk this 300-kilometer trail. And after this, walking this trail, I wrote a story about this whole journey. And I found it very exciting because this trail was very difficult in the sense because it is in the, in the Gangetic Plains, just immediately south of Himalaya, Great Himalayas. So every 5 or 10 kilometers, I was crossing a river, small puddle. So I was wondering how much difficult it must have been for all this 500 women taking this long journey. And they must be carrying their provisions also because at that time, during the time of Buddha in 5th, 6th century BC, the villages used to be very small and it was very difficult for any village to host such a big group of women. So they must be carrying all the food and other provisions for their journey. And it was also during the months of monsoon. So it was a very dangerous time. It is the time when all the wild animals are roaming around and snakes are this is the time when snakes come out. So I had a very great admiration for what these ladies did for their what do you say? They wanted to join Sangha. They wanted to practice closely with Buddha. So their determination, will, and what they did was very extraordinary. So at that time, I thought that I will write about this journey and let's make this whole trail a living heritage. People should celebrate this great journey because this journey is a symbol of a great courage. Because at those days, in those time, as Wendy was sharing, that it was time of strong patriarchy. And this woman, most of these people, women would not have stepped out of their house, I mean, this village. And for the first time, they stepped out and they took such a long journey to fulfill their, deep desire to practice, to become nuns, bhikkhunis. So we are organizing this after 4 years of effort led by Venerable Tathaloka, LBDFI and others, senior nuns. So we are organizing this, we are having this 6-day event. And this is not completely, we are not going to walk the whole trail. This 300-kilometer trail, we cannot, it's not possible to do it in 6 days. It would take and I took 15 days to complete this trail. So in these 6 days, we are going to touch the important places along this trail. Some of the places so we are assembling on 16th at Lumbini, and from 17th every day, each day, we are going to touch important places associated with we don't have much information about Mahaprajapati Gotami's renunciation, except that she left Tilarakota, Palace City, and then finally they arrived at Vaishali. But we have a great detail about Buddha's renunciation. So this is the place, according to Buddhist literature, Eastern Gate, from where Bodhisattva Siddhartha left his palace in the Ashala Purnima night, midnight. So we would be having some ceremonies, some functions here. And at Kapilavastu, there is a very good shrine called Samai Mai Shrine. And the Xuanzang, when he was here, he saw a place, he saw a shrine where Mahamaya was, she conceived Bodhisattva Siddhartha, and she had this dream that elephant has entered her body from right side. So there's a shrine called Samai Mai Shrine in Kapilavastu Palace City. And it has a history of, it's in a continuously living heritage site. I mean, it was not abandoned at any point of time. And I strongly feel that this Samai Mai has come from Mahamai. It is just a corruption of this word. Mahamai has got Samai Mai. And the people still from, all the local neighborhood, they come and they offer a miniature elephant at this site. So we would be having some function here on the day one. And Bhikkhunis, they are planning to have a ordination ceremony here. So on the day one, we will be having ordination, because as per the text, this Bhikkhunis, when they left this palace city, they got their head tonsured, and then they they begin their journey as nuns. Symbolically also, it's we are going to do this in a small like an ordination of a few nuns there at on the 17th. Next day, we are going to have some events at Lumbini, some ceremonial walk, and this Lumbini was also part of this trail. This was also part of the route. As we know that when Mahapajapati and when Mahamaya was going to Devada to give birth to a child, so they stayed here. So it means that this was part of the trade route. This was part of the route to the further to the east towards Kolian Kingdom. So we are going to have a one-day here event. And next day, we are going to do some event at Ramagrama Stupa site. So Ramagrama, we find mention about Siddhartha crossing this site during his renunciation. Of course, at that time, there was no stupa here, but there was some small habitation here. So we find mention about this place in the renunciation journey of Bodhisattva Siddhartha. So we are going to have some function here. And next day, we are going to visit this place called Thadi Ghat. This is the place where this is the river Anuma. Now it's called Gandaki. So we find mention about this river in renunciation of Bodhisattva Siddhartha. He crossed this river, and then Anuma means something very great. And when Buddha crossed this river, he said to his Kanthaka, his this chariot rider, So he told him that my renunciation is going to be like, this river, great, like an Anuma. It's going to be unprecedented. So we are going to have some function here at this Anuma Ghat. And this is for the first time, I guess, bhikkhunis are going to reach here, because until a few years back, there was no access to this place. There was no roads. But now they have created road for this place. So it's now easy to reach this place. So we are going to have a one-day event here on 19th, I guess. Yeah. And after that, we would be crossing, and we would be from this is the place. Thadigat is here, and the next day we would be crossing again from here, because we will be having some foreigners also, nuns coming from other countries. So we cannot cross here. So we will have to come here, and from here we will cross, and next day we will be having event here. So this is the place where Anupiya is the place where Bodhisattva Siddhartha, he sent back his horse, and then he cut his hair, and then he offered his clothes to one hunter gatherer, and then he collected his clothes. So all these three events happened here. So the Buddhist monk Xuanzang, on his pilgrimage, he visited this place, and he noticed some stupas to mark this event. So what happened? Yeah, so we are going to have some events here. And bhikkhunis are planning to have Patimokha at this site, Anupiya. So this is also for the first time, because these sites were not discovered until now, because all these places were inaccessible till now. I mean, there were no roads. Nobody was making any effort to find all these places mentioned by Xuanzang. So probably it's for the first time that Buddhist pilgrims are reaching this place. So it's also a very historic moment for it's the first step towards making this site a living heritage site. And from here, this is the ancient highway, ancient trail. So all this from here, the Ashokan pillars start. So this is the Ashokan pillar site, this is Ashokan pillar site, and this is Ashokan pillar site. And this is a stupa here, and there's a stupa here. So this is like, ancient trail which marks the important event associated with Buddha's renunciation and Mahaparinibbana journey. Buddha, his last journey, Mahaparinibbana journey, also started from Vaishali, and he moved in the north direction. So many of these markers on this route are according to Xuanzang's account, is to mark the renunciation, and many markers like these pillars and stupas are to mark the last journey of Buddha. So this trail is very historic. So we are going to visit all these sites. This is like Nandangad stupa. It's very early stupa from 2nd century BC. This is Kesariya stupa. This is the stupa to mark the place where Buddha on his Mahaparinibbana journey offered bowl to the people of Vaishali. And this is Ariraj pillar. So again, this is marking this historic Buddha's Mahaparinibbana journey. So on our this Mahaprajapati Gotami trail, we would be offering prayers, and we would be having ceremonies at all these sites. And finally, we would be reaching Vaishali. So Vaishali, and these are the sites in Vaishali which we are going to have event. But let me share, how do we know that this, according to Xuanzang, this site, this place, village called Bhakra, it has got many mounds. And according to Xuanzang, these mounds represent, he mentions about 4 or 5 events which happened in this area. So he saw 4 or 5 stupas. So 1 or 2 stupas are very important for this trail. One stupa, according to Xuanzang, was to mark the site of Ambapali monastery. We know that Ambapali was a courtesan, as just Wendy has mentioned. So on his, he offered this monastery, her mango grove to Buddha and Sangha for raising the for monks to stay. So Xuanzang saw an Ashokan stupa to mark the site. And beside that site, there was another site which Xuanzang says, another site was Kutagra Shala. that is the place where this nuns got ordained. So Kutagrashala was double galleried Vihara, and Xuanzang saw that Vihara was close to Ambapali's monastery. So this place has got many such mounds. So once you excavate this, you will find stupa beneath it. So since now villages are settled on this mound, so we cannot remove these people from here. Government cannot do that. So, but we would be visiting these sites and we would be offering prayer and doing ceremonial walks in these villages. But let me share, how do we know that this is the site of Ambapali monastery and Kutagrashala? So according to Xuanzang, these are the description of Xuanzang. So Xuanzang saw an Ashokan pillar site and Buddha relic stupa, and he saw a couple of sites at Vaishali. So all the sites were with reference to other sites. So according to Xuanzang, this is the place where there was a monastery where Xuanzang stayed. And from here he went to the place of Ambapali monastery, the place of Kutagrashala, and then the place where Mahaprajapati Gotami and 500 bhikkhunis, they took Nibbana. So according to this projection, according to Xuanzang's projection, this is the area where Ambapali's monastery was there, and Kutagrashala was here, and Ananda's half-body relic stupa was here. So this village this is a huge village, and it has got many mounds and lots of ancient bricks scattered everywhere. And similarly, according to Xuanzang, this is the place where he saw this stupa to mark the Mahaprajapati Gotami Parinibbana. But again, all these sites were not excavated because at that time government didn't have funds and villages were settled on those mounds. So it was not very easy to relocate those places, to relocate the villages. So they left as it is. So now the point is that instead of waiting for them to get excavated, we should start and try to make this place venerated place again. So on our pilgrimage, we would be visiting this village and we would be doing a ceremonial walk. And villages, I met these villages and they are very pleased. They say that they would be welcoming the Bhikkhuni group to the village. So on the last day, we would be having event here. And in the second half, we would be visiting this site, which Wendy just mentioned, as they could not make it to this site. But this is the event which was organized by Nalanda Mahavyar. This is a deemed university in Nalanda. So every year, on occasion of Mahaprajapati Parinibbana Day, they organize a ceremony here. So we are going to have valedictory function here at this site. So I recently visited this site and now it's accessible. I mean, you can see some water here. So it's like, this river Gandak we just saw. So this river is like, very notorious for changing courses. It's always like, every 100 years it changes course. So you can see this Vaishali is very close to this river. So some 400, 500 years ago, this river changed its course and it was flowing past this mount. So every year during monsoon, this area gets flooded. But luckily this year there was no water when I went there. So we would be having function here. The last function valedictory would be here. Yeah, so this was the presentation. If anybody has any question.
Muted.
I see Sister Wangmo here. I would like to welcome Sister Wangmo as she is also going to join us for the Mahapajapati walking pilgrimage this year. So I would like to invite her to say something if she wished to.
Thank you, sister, so much. I'm really delighted to see all of you here. This is really a very special opportunity to walk in a sacred place and to go traveling with the Venerable Bhikkhunis will be also extremely important as we revive these sacred places. And there's something about walking mindfully each step and connecting to the earth, the sacredness of the space. And I've been doing these yatras now for a number of years, starting with the Jetian Valley, where Deepak and I connected very closely to revive this place between Bodh Gaya and the Bamboo Grove. And some of you may know about the history where King Bimbisara met the Blessed One along the Jetian Valley. And now that has been going on for more than 11 years. And some thousands of us walk after the recitation of the Tipitaka. And it's a very meaningful program because we go at our own pace and we meet pilgrims along the way. And it's just really this intention to connect to the Buddha's places and to travel with the Sangha. And so I feel very blessed that this year we are inaugurating these sacred places that Deepak has so kindly gone ahead, and he's been talking about this. I remember when we were in Lumbini, and he was so full of energy to get this moving. When we had completed our international Tipitaka chanting in Lumbini, where there were thousands present, and just he said, could I just have an hour of your time so we could discuss this as a possibility? And that idea was born then. And now today we're actually coming together with the intention to bring many of us, especially women, especially the Venerable Bhikkhunis, in front and leading us along the way to very, very sacred places that are so meaningful. And I have to say that that picture of Kapilavastu is very meaningful because just this year, I also took a group of about 40 monastics, and we all lined up. I was the last one, but I could see the expressions on the faces of the monks as they walked through that gate. And it's so meaningful, I think, for the Venerable Bhikkhunis to go through this process of walking to the places that are very much in the tradition, and become so meaningful as to carrying the robe. And so there's a lot of reflection along the way, and a lot of local villagers that are so happy and joyous, and maybe for the first time seeing a Venerable Bhikkhuni, and the merit that comes from that is so abundant. And so for all of us as lay people, as lay women, I'm excited and honored to be walking aside and alongside the Venerable Bhikkhunis and to help this process. And one Venerable Bhikkhuni asked me last night as we're preparing at Dharma College, will this be the beginning of this walk every year? And let us try. Let us try to make this an annual yatra. Just as we have Mahakashapa's walk, just as we have the Jetian Valley walk, just as we have now this first Bhikkhuni walk. And I hope that while we are in India, once we've completed the recitation of the Buddha Vachana under the sacred Bodhi tree, which I have to say, a big plug-in for that. This year is a tremendous year we're expecting the largest ever congregation of possibly 20,000 attendees, and India is leading as the host. So this is a monumental moment for India to be rising again after a gap of 700 years where the voice and the sound of the Dharma was silent. And so we're recreating the history by coming back together. So karmically, this is very important for us to make the causes and conditions to revive these places. So I hope I see you either at Dharma College tomorrow, and exciting for all us to be presenting this to a larger group of people. but also to do a benefit dinner so that we can raise funds for the Venerable Bhikkhunis to be attending this program. So please, if you are in the Bay Area, join us. If you're not, join us. I think there will be an online ability live streaming, so you can see the chanting and all of the sacred relics. And this is also another miracle. The relics have come from Sri Lanka, not planned, I have to say. So these are all, I think, the right conditions appearing at this time for the sacredness of the Venerable Bhikkhunis to come forward and for us to walk along the path. So all of us joined here together. Thank you for being a part of our collective intention. Thank you.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you so much, sister, for sharing this beautiful information with us. And I hope to see you in Dharma College also and in India also. And there's one more person I want to mention, Nelson. I'm seeing Nelson here. So Nelson is coming to India many years. I don't know for how long he's coming, but he's supporting in Tripitaka chanting. I think he's a part of LBDSI also. So he also have lots of experience. This year, when we did the Patimokkha books distribution in Marathi language, he was also there. And please, Nelson, share some words.
Well, thank you, Bhikkhuni. Happy to hear the explanation here. I'm very happy to join you all, and it will be great. It's a great opportunity for all of us to be together and doing this wonderful journey together with Deepak, Womo, and all the Bhikkhunis guiding us through these places and do these ceremonies, ordinations. So I'm looking forward to join you all. I'm since the beginning of the Tipitaka, 20 years now. Very happy to be together with all of you. Thank you so much. Looking forward to see you all there. Tomorrow will be in Berkeley.
Yes, for
Okay.
sure.
All right. Thank you. And but we do want to have time for questions with Deepak. So welcoming anyone, if you have any question or comment on the presentation that Deepak shared, please welcome to raise a hand. Ready? Let's see. No questions? Okay. Oh, I see one here. Janaki, yes, please.
I don't have a question actually, but I just want to express my gratitude for your, reopening and this, like, bringing this pilgrimage and this path into consciousness in this way and back into life. So just gratitude.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's amazing, like pioneering work for anyone who might want to follow along. Just really very much appreciating everything that Deepak has done, that Wendy has done, that Mongmo has done, to sort of make it possible and even imaginable to do this walk for a larger group. It's an amazing offering. I see a hand from Janaki, and then I also see a hand in the room here. Janaki, please.
Yeah. I just wanted to know whether there would be a documentary, some sort of documentary video after this trip, so that you could share with many people, because I also would like to share it with my friends and colleagues. Will there be something like that after the
We are
pilgrimage
planning,
is
we are
over?
raising funds for that. Angmo is trying best to raise funds for that, because making a good documentary needs funds. So if we have funds, we will definitely, we plan to, because filmmaker team is all ready, but because, last time we made a documentary film on our Mahakashapa walk. So, but it fell short of some funds. So this time we are hoping to raise sufficient funds so that we have a good documentary film made on this historic event. So let's hope, let's pray.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Great. Yes, there's a question in the chat. Will this session be recorded? Yes, it is already being recorded. It's publicly available right now on our YouTube, and so you'll be able to find it later. Facebook also. We have one question from our seminary, Arya Dhammajivi, here in the room.
Hi, Deepak. Thank you so much for your work. We here at Dhammadharini, we've been practicing walking, and my question to you is that, the trail, how is it, like fairly plain trail, flat, or is it uphill, downhill, mountain? We just want to know how much of practice that we have to do to prepare for that.
All now it's most of this trail has blacktop roads. So some part we are trying to when we are going to this Anuma River, so we have some good trails through the agricultural land, and again at Anupia also we have some very good trails through the farmlands. But otherwise, most of the trail is on the highway. But it's very secluded places, not very crowded.
You also mentioned there's like little rivers, several rivers.
But now all those rivers have bridges. But I mean, in ancient times, I was just wondering when Mahapajapati Gotami did this walk. I mean, when they walked, they must have crossed this hundreds of small rivers with both their hands engaged with their bags and everything, crossing this rivers. It must be very difficult, and they did a very great work. So when we will be going to this trail, I mean, when we will be doing this walk, you can see through bus windows that every 5 kilometer, 10 kilometer, you will see a river crossing. So they must have walked and crossed those rivers, unlike us who are going to take buses. So it's then we have more respect for what they did, besides establishing Bhikkhuni Sangha and all those. But doing this journey in itself is a very great job. I mean, all of them, all these 500 women, they arrived safe at Vaishali, doing this 300-kilometer trail through the forest and marshy land. I mean, when we will go to Anuma River, we will see all these tall elephant grasses everywhere. So it was during those days, it was like that only. And all this forest was full of tigers. I mean, it was still this where we are going, this area has got tigers. So but in those days, it must be very crazy. And these people, they stayed, I mean, they crossed this trail. So that's the idea, as I was saying, that we should have all these trails, not only we should not only celebrate it, but we should also try to make it a World Heritage Trail. I mean, this should be this is a original trail walked by Mahapajapati Gotami, the first institution which was set by her, which is still working. Maybe this is the first women's organization which is functional for last 2,500 years. A very historic thing which happened. So maybe this effort of LBDFI and United Theravada Bhikkhuni Sangha, it leads to something very good results. But let's hope that we can make a documentary film. We should document this. Because 100 bhikkhunis walking this trail, I mean, taking this trail and occasionally walking also and touching all these places. As I mentioned, at least there are 2 or 3 places which nobody has yet visited. Nobody has because there was no roads, and pilgrims these days they don't walk, they go through buses. So it was inaccessible till recently, past 2 years. So this sites are now accessible. So this is for the first time that any pilgrims, they are reaching there, and we are lucky that this our Mahapajapati Gotami walk is going to touch all the important places. We are not going to skip any site mentioned. I mean, taken by Buddha and Mahapajapati.
Thanks, Deepak. Last question. In terms of, I'm just trying to check the difficulty of the walk. From 1 to 10, how would you rate the difficulty of the walk would be for this December?
Well,
it could be fun. I mean, walking 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers is not a big thing. I mean, we are not going to carry all those things which bhikkhunis carried 2,500 years ago. Our hands would be free, and then we will be having volunteers with us carrying water and everything. So it's going to be we can be more mindful.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Bhikkhuni, we will be together. We'll
Yeah.
help you, don't worry.
But may I just say about the walking? Walking, I found I'm not an exercise person. I used to be when I was younger, but I have found through this walking yatra to be so, I love walking now. There's something about this act of walking in a sacred place that you lose yourself, and your mind is completely encompassed with the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha. I mean, as you walk, it just, you are merged with that. And so the physical side of it, while it does feel like we're going from here to there, this distance is basically dissolved because we're one with the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And that is so, it's almost kind of like a miracle. I am not a physical person, but I have had to walk a lot of miles. And now I've even revived like my connection with my husband Richard, who's not much of a walker. Now he loves to walk. So I'm actually thinking of maybe putting down some notes in a journal to say how beautiful walking is. As a method of connecting to the teachings. And so, just to say to Bhikkhuni, I was asking Deepak also, how many miles are we doing each day, just to
Right.
get some kind of, concept of that. But 5 to 7 kilometers, maybe, I would say 5 to 10 miles at the most, I hope, is like that's the top bar is 10 miles. But that's like a few hours, and maybe we could break that up. I mean, I'm sure Deepak is not, we're not running there. We're
Yeah,
walking,
man.
and we're
Yeah.
walking with many others who have different paces, and we don't have to rush this. I mean, the landscape itself is so beautiful that you're walking through paddy fields, you're walking through villages, you're walking through with cows next to you. You can stop and just look. And I mean, it's just so peaceful. It's really special. And then, of course, you have the cars and the buses and all of that. But, it's also equally very beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I understand Deepak is working now on finalizing all the details of the distances and the lodgings and everything, and we'll look forward to seeing that when that's ready to share. But yeah, I'm looking forward to walking. I see a hand from Ananda Bodhi.
Yes, I'm
May
back
I
with a
do that?
question, with two questions actually. One is, so Deepak, you mentioned that there would need to be funding for a documentary. So what kind of figure would that be? Because if we put a figure out, that might help.
We are hoping to raise, I mean, if we want to make a good film, we should be having $40,000 at least.
Ooh.
So that $40,000 so that we can have a good crew of like, sound recorders and cameramen and best of equipment so that we can show this documentary in good platforms like Oscars or like, Cannes somewhere. So for that, we need to have good equipments and good recording things also. So let's see how much we can raise.
Okay. And is there a fundraising program for that established yet?
Yeah.
Sister, we thought the first priority should be to get the bhikkhunis there and to raise funds for that. This
Yes.
would be equally, I think, also important is to have a film because this is the first walk. So we're kind of sharing this as we go, but the first priority is to get as many bhikkhunis there and to raise funds for their travel and to participate
Yes.
along this program. But if there's anyone within our circles who has an interest to carry this at a media level, I think this is a very special film that could get to a very wide audience because the filmmaker is absolutely ready to do it. And he did the Kashyapa walk that has now been shown in different film festivals. And he's very excited and eager to assemble the team. And he put a dollar figure of about 40,000. And he said this could go at film, like at different films around the world. So I'm also trying from the government side, Deepak, but right now it's a little difficult and complicated from the Indian government because culturally speaking, maybe they could see this being so important, but I haven't had anyone come forward yet.
Yeah. And maybe the first pilgrimage there'll be photographs, and then it'll inspire people, and then people will know a little bit more for the second, perhaps. The other question I have is, Deepak, you showed a picture of the 500 bhikkhunis walking along the trail. I would love to have a copy of that we could have at our vihara, and I'm sure there are other bhikkhunis might have the same feelings. So, is that possible?
I will get you connected with the photographer or the painter who has painted that. So I will pass
Thank
on
you so much.
her number to you.
Thank you so much. That's it.
Other comments, questions? Right. Oh, I see a comment that perhaps we do need to practice some running in case of tigers. I think Deepak promised no tigers now. All right. Well, more questions, comments? We want to open it up just for anybody sharing about pilgrimage. I know probably some of you have been on pilgrimages before. I know Wendy was talking about just the meaningfulness of this, of connecting back with the roots. Any questions about that, reflections about that? Welcome, anybody. We can open it up for discussion. Want to say something? Yeah. You want to say anything about your experiences? Oh, okay. All right. Dhammadharini. On the screen.
Hi again. Like Madame Vamos, Sister Vamos was talking about that this year's special because India is the lead organizer. Not just Indian bhikkhus, Indian bhikkhunis will be on the Tibetan chanting stage. So it's important that that we monastic from all over the world, join the Tibetan chanting to support our Indian bhikkhunis, who's the the direct link to Mahapajapati Gotami, and then this trail. So this sort of like complete the recreation of the history. So that's why I'm so looking forward to this since last year. So that's why I was asking, how should I prepare it well? So so that's, I just want to say how precious, how sacred this will be. So I just want to share that. Thank you.
I have a question for Deepak. I want to ask you, like, how did you get inspired to find this? And you talked, like, Sister Wangmo have told us that you discussed with her, and then this plan come up. So I was like, from where?
While I was walking, while I was doing this Shwenzang trail, and then I had already read this about Mahaprajapati renunciation, but I didn't. But there's no much mention about the details about her journey. But then we know that she followed Buddha. I mean, Buddha left Nigroda Dham as Nigroda monastery, as Wendy was sharing. So after a few days, they followed them, followed the Buddha and his entourage. So we know that they were taking the same route. So I was just wondering, because I mean it was easy for this men to do this trail because they are but I mean for women who have never stepped out of their houses and for the first time they're doing this, it must have been very difficult. And 500 of them. So because in those days villages used to be very small, and hosting such a large number of people, so they must be sleeping under the open sky and staying under the trees and carrying the firewood because I mean those days this was the monsoons month, so they cannot have dry wood available for making fresh food. So all these difficulties they faced. So I had a big admiration for they did many great things, but this was a great event. So this how I shared this with Venerable Tathaloka and then with Wangmo. So this is how this idea came up, that let's commemorate this journey. And the idea is that this journey should be part of school textbook, at least in India and Nepal. People should know that this it was not something very small event. It was a big event. I mean, these people were very determined and this was a very courageous move. So idea is also to popularize this event, and so let's make effort that this whole journey and this whole story should go into the textbooks. Students should learn about this in their schools. That's the idea in long term.
Sadhu, sadhu. Glad you have the idea, and today we have opportunity to walk again on the footstep of Mahapajapati Gotami, as we call her our mother. So we are really, when we walk, we will feel really proud that we are following the footstep of our mother. So thank you so much for sharing. Now I see the hand raised by Venerable Kunga.
Hello.
Hello.
My comment is for Wendy. I just wanted to thank you for writing the book, The Woman Who Raised the Buddha. I read it a few months ago, and it was really quite moving. I especially like the story about the robe, and there's so many good Dharma lessons in that story, and I think about it quite often, actually, what Gotami went through as a mother, and then as political leader, and then as a kind of a key leader in a religious movement. And I felt your book really brought to life all the emotions that she would have gone through. And actually everyone at the time of the Buddha, it really put a human face on the history. And it was very beautiful. So I want to thank you for all that research you put into it and for sharing that with everyone. And also to thank Deepak for your efforts, and Dhammadharini as well, because this is a historic time, and it's so wonderful to be part of that. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you.
I see Janaki.
Yes, I too want to thank Deepak and Wendy and Dhammadharini for organizing this, because I think it is for the first time maybe that I have heard about a trek or a walk really of this kind. That's really very informative, and also I think more than the people who are living in the birthplace of the Buddha, the people who are living in other parts of the world, the Buddhists, they know much about more about the Buddha and his teachings, and all about all these places as well. So what Deepak said was very important as well, that there's a plan to introduce into the school curriculum or the book or the syllabus or whatsoever. Yeah, because the world should come to know about these things. And also, I think in that sense, Wendy also has done a great job of, writing about these places and about these incidents. So we can, learn a lot about those things. Because I know the pilgrimage is important, the bhikkhunis should make this walk. It is important, yes, of course, but a documentary will be very informative, because not everybody can make that walk. And now the Buddha was just one person, and he, as a single person, he gave the reality to the world. Buddhism, I don't take it as a religion, it's a science, the science, I should say. So, but because it is written now we have it in the written form in Tripitaka. So because of that, the people from all over the world can, get a good knowledge about this Dhamma. So likewise, if documentaries of these kinds of walks and about these places could be made, it will be very, very useful to to everybody. That's what I think, of course. Yeah, so I want to thank you very much to all those people who are involved in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for sharing those thoughts, Janaki. And yeah, it's good to see the interest and the inspiration, and I think really feel like this is something that we can offer together. All of us being part of this, it can be offered and spread and shared, and I hope it may be so. So towards that end, I want to see if there's any last questions. Otherwise, we can make our final announcements here. Anybody else? No. Okay. Yeah, I think we can come then towards our closing, and I just want to talk a little bit more about how this will be going forward. This event this morning is in the lead up to our in-person event tomorrow afternoon at Dharma College, Berkeley. Very grateful to have that hosted by Wangmo and Dharma College, together with Dhammadharini. And this will be a benefit program in support of the pilgrimage. Again, it's going to include the film screening of the recent Sri Lankan popular film, Gotama Bodhamata, about the life of Mahapajapati Gotami, and which very generously offered by the producers of that film for this purpose. It's otherwise not yet been released in North America. They had one screening in Toronto, but otherwise it's not yet available. So we're very, very happy that they've agreed to supporting in this way. So Anumodana to the filmmakers. And so that will be part of the event tomorrow afternoon. The other part will be the arrival of the sacred relics of Mahapajapati Gotami Teri, and also several other Bhikkhuni Arahant Teris that have been recently brought from Sri Lanka. And they're actually here now in the room with us, and will be traveling to Dharma College shortly. We're making all preparations for putting them very, very beautifully for transport, and for bringing into enshrine in the Dharma College temple temporarily tomorrow, for people to come to have time of chanting together, and Dhamma talks, and meditation, in addition to the film screening. So that will be starting at 2 p.m. tomorrow in Berkeley. And we're also going to be live streaming some portion of this event. We'll live stream the arrival of the relics, and also of the chanting, Dhamma talks, and some meditation time together. We're not able to live stream the film because it's copyrighted by the producers. They've offered it for the in-person showing, but not for the online showing. But inviting all of you to join for that, either in person or joining in the live stream if you're able to tomorrow afternoon. And then, of course, that is all leading up to the pilgrimage in December, that a number of our bhikkhunis here hope to attend. And also, I know there's a number of bhikkhunis being organized in India and various places around the world who are hoping to be part of this inaugural walk that we've heard much about. And I think others are also, there's possibility of joining. So I don't know, Wangmo, do you want to say anything more about how to join or how to be involved in this pilgrimage going forward?
Well, I hope that we all stay connected in the group. We have a WhatsApp group where we are sort of putting information in pretty much in real time about the program itself, and any questions that come up for you, we're happy to respond to, especially questions on pilgrimage. Deepak was so kind to do this visit and to look at sort of two options, whether it's a bit more elevated with hotels to more monastic, where you're staying in temples. So that information is now available, the two different options in our group. But I would say just staying connected to Dhammadharini Monastery is the best, sister. And they can then, if there are specific questions, just join our WhatsApp group, and then we can just go from there. But I'm heading to India on Wednesday, so I'm still connected, but just by more in WhatsApp India time. And just to say that if anyone wants to come to the program tomorrow, we do have a registration page that's up on the notes page. So if anyone wants to join, I hope to see you all. And thank you again for making this possible for us to connect before the big program tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Thank you for putting that information in the chat for anyone who would like to register for tomorrow's event. And yeah, it is still a sort of a work in progress to get all this together, to have this first time inaugural pilgrimage with the Bhikkhunis. So yes, welcome to reach out to us for more information, and we'll share it as it becomes available. So, well, there's any final comments? Otherwise, we may just go to our closing. Do you have anything final to say?
I would say something. First of all, I would like to show my gratitude towards Ayatthaloka. I think it's her manifestation that is coming true, and it's beneficial for all of the Bhikkhuni Sangha, not only in America, but all around the world. This is a really historical thing that is happening, and I never imagined that I'm going to walk on the path that once in 2,500 years back, when Mahapajapati Gotami with 500 bhikkhunis, she walked to ask to Buddha to ordain. And if she didn't took that step, I don't think we would have exist here. So I feel like our mother, Arhantateri Mahapajapati Gotami, she walked this path with so much inspiration for us and so much wisdom she had, not for only for herself, but for all the women who are suffering in the life. And she was thinking, why only men? Women also can be free from the suffering. And then she took this step forward. And I'm really happy to join this program. So I'm really, really thankful for Ayatthaloka to bringing this and manifesting this. And thank you so much, everyone who's joining today. I hope in future also you will join us, support us to carry forward this beautiful Dhamma, the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And may all of us inspire each other and grow in the Dhamma very beautifully, like the lotus grow in the mud, like we are growing in the samsara, but with the Dhamma in our heart, in our mind, and in our daily life. So once again, thank you so much for joining us.
Especially to Wendy and Deepak for your time,
Yes.
and for your friendship and your pioneering spirit with this. To Wang Mo for all the support with the event at Dharma College, and also this pilgrimage. And yes, very much to Ayatthaloka, without whom we wouldn't be doing this program today. And to all the pilgrims, to Xuanzang, who mapped this out so we can still know it today. And of course to Mahapajapati Gotami Teri, who walked this along with the 500 women. And to the Buddha, our great teacher, who started it all this great chain from the Buddha down to us today, we can have our gratitude for and appreciation, and consider ourselves as part of this chain, that we're walking forward, carrying it forward. And may this be for all of our benefit, all of our happiness and liberation for the long term.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
And with that, we can end by paying our respects to the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, and thanking our great Bhikkhuni Sangha foremothers. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you all.